Real people and real authentic talk. This is Authenticity Radio.
Hey, yo, check this out.
Yeah. Yo, what up? This your boy Flo Rida.
Authenticity Radio.
I feel it. Don't tell it. Come get it. Who ready? I'm ready. You ready? Let's get it.
You are listening to Slade Suter.
Hey, welcome. Grab a seat anywhere. No, we don't have any menus. The only thing we have today is the freedom to express who you truly are. We call it Authenticity Radio. You'll like it, don't worry. Let me go grab the host. He's got the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper. He's a good guy. Slade Suter.
Hello, thank you, and welcome. This is Slade Suter. The first 6 steps to a coaching approach to education is our topic today. And I happen to have up my sleeve, I have a very big sleeve, Martin Richards is a teacher. He is a trainer and a professional coach. He makes profession and coaching actually reachable and fun. And Martin, welcome back to Authenticity Radio.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Martin, could you please tell me about step 1? And for our listening audience, we have 6 steps to a coaching approach to education. So, what is step 1, Martin? What do we have to look forward to? Self-awareness, exercise, listening to your communication, and moving away from the negative language and toward positive language. What is this about, Martin?
It's about a teacher noticing what they can do in terms of developing their skill as a teacher by first working with their own language. It's so easy to fall into less productive language and limit your students' performance. It's crazy to do such a thing, but we do. And I know because I used to be a teacher, and I used to say things like, don't forget to do your homework. And that's a limiting thing to say because it presumes that they will forget. And so I suggest teachers to work with the language that they have, pay attention to it, and clean it up so that it's more positive.
Okay, could you give us some more examples of how this may look? Because I'm catching myself, and I'm trying to do even parenting. I'm trying to clean up my parenting language as well. I mean, just the delimiting unconscious. And this, I guess that we should mention that this is an unconscious thing that we're kind of doing, isn't it?
It usually is unconscious that we set limits for ourselves and for other people. And by making teachers aware of that process that's going on, they're usually quite horrified to hear that they are saying negative things. Mm-hmm. They don't think that they're negative because there's no negative intent behind it. But it's what the students are picking up. You mentioned being a parent. Parents tend to tell their children to stop doing things. Mm-hmm. More often than they suggest that they do something else. Stop making such a noise. And then you're on, as a child or a student, you're left with the question, what should I do then? If I'm not doing that, what is there? What else is there? Can you please guide me in doing something else? It's much more efficient to say, could you be quiet for 5 minutes because I need to think, I need to make a decision about dinner, or I need to, as a teacher, you might need to make a decision about what to do next in the lesson. You're getting so many questions at you. So I ask teachers, what do you say when your students do good stuff, good things, whatever it might be? And they have things that they say, well done, American, good job. But there isn't that much of variety. And of course, if you're using the same phrase over and over again, it runs out. The value becomes thinner. Well done on the 50th time is not worth as much as it was the first time you heard it.
You're jiving. Or the real modern one, now that's sick. That's sick, which is good.
Well, I'm not suggesting that teachers use students' language, but I am suggesting that they use a more variety of phrases that reward good behavior. So a challenge in the book and in my workshops has been to say to teachers, write down what you normally say when students do a good thing, and then share them with each other. And if that doesn't produce a wide enough variety, the second challenge is, okay, now I want you to create a positive adjective like awesome, brilliant, creative, dramatic around each letter of the alphabet. So that's giving teachers a lot of guidance on, okay, every letter of the alphabet, that's quite a few letters.
Okay.
And, yep.
So you're actually asking the instructors, the teachers, to go to work, be creative, and start trying, reaching out for their creativity in becoming more positive in their language.
And they've got it. It only requires a little hint in that direction. A more rich language as a teacher gives a rich language for the students to work with. And I'm not suggesting that teachers use the students' phrases for what they might say to each other. Like you mentioned sick, there's lots of other phrases that you might hear in different countries. Teachers don't have to use that because the kids claim the language is theirs by using their own phrases.
Well, you could try. You could say, that's jiving. Yeah,
it's real rad. Okay.
But the only thing is we fossilized so quickly. But however, cool is still in, isn't it?
Cool works. Awesome works.
Awesome still works. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, now step 2. I'm sorry. I just love this one. Martin, this is very nice. This is up my other sleeve. This is humor and not jokes.
Yeah.
And you've written a foundational step in role changing from teacher to coach. This step demands and develops your bravery and self-confidence. So speak on this.
I certainly will, because I've noticed that if teachers want to add humor into the classroom, they might use jokes as an attempt to lighten the mood in the room. Unfortunately, jokes are limited in time. What worked yesterday won't work today. And they're limited as in which groups you can use them with. And what worked with one group of students this morning doesn't necessarily work with another group of students in the afternoon. So I'd leave jokes out of the way. But you can bring in humor.
Okay, what does humor look like?
Well, humor looks like I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it deliberately. And there's a little bit of doubt and something strange. For example, in the book I tell the story of a history teacher who's telling a story about Napoleon. Now, I don't know much about the Napoleonic Wars, but during the course of her story, she starts mentioning tanks and aeroplanes. Now, she's doing this with an absolutely straight face, with the same tone that she began with, but the students are going, because some of them aren't. That's the funniest thing. Some of them are just accepting it. And then she ends the story with what Napoleon said to his girlfriend, "Not tonight, Josephine," in a text message. At this point, the students, most of them, get it. And then becomes the question of, can you trust your source material?
Wow.
Incredible.
Oh, that's fun.
It's fun, and it's not a joke.
Okay, so it's humor and fun.
Humor and fun, yeah.
Okay. So don't be afraid of fun, and you can bring humor in. And again, the teacher is utilizing their natural ability. You're not asking them to be a comic. No, are you?
No. Comedian. No, we're not a comedian as such, no. But there are some clues to be had if a teacher can access the drama teacher, if there is one, or a local theatre group. There's a lot of resources there for adding humor, because humor can come from how you walk, your facial expression, tone of voice, timing. All of those things can be learned, and they have a tremendous effect on the class, because the students can see my teacher cares enough about me to bother to create timing and drama and fun so that I can learn.
Wow. So you're asking the teachers to go back to school.
They are at school, and I'm asking them to use the fact that they've got an audience there and play with that audience in a caring and humorous way.
And in order to develop humor is not just you're just not asking the face value. You're asking them to actually go to work, seek how you could become a better, seek to how to better express yourself in a humorous way.
Yeah. And many of the things are very simple. A lot of teachers are often on stage in the sense that they are at the front of the class and standing up when the students are sitting down and moving around perhaps. And they can use that energy to interact with their students. I had a very advanced, let's say, university teacher who was very the engineer. Interruptions. He would interrupt the lesson in a different way every time. So you knew as a student that something was going to happen, but you're not sure what and you're not sure when, but you're there and you're awake and you're ready. Your mind is open. Something's going to happen.
That's fun. That is fun. Okay, so there's many ways you can do this, and the kids pick this up is you're caring. You're caring enough to do this.
Yes.
And they want humor. It's kind of like a natural, something that is opening the child up in different ways, making them in a receptive mode or putting them in a receptive mode.
Yes, because they aren't necessarily wanting to engage intellectually right now. Mm-hmm. So an emotional contact of a positive and enjoyable variety. So humor, lots of humor. The book outlines some examples and how to generate your own sense of humor.
Your own sense of humor. I love it. Okay, and now I'm going to move to step 3. Asking, not telling. Asking, not telling. You will move from exclamation point to question mark. You wrote this.
Yeah.
For example, from knowing to believing, and from being in control to being in charge. Now that seems powerful.
It's enormously powerful. I'm not quite sure which of these steps is the biggest, but this is one of them, because it's asking the teacher to set aside for a moment knowing everything. Because teachers usually know stuff. I mean, they ask questions about things that they know about to find out what the students know. But in this case, it's a shift in the kind of questions. You're asking questions to find out what the students know beyond what you taught them, their own experience, and how they are learning.
So how would that go from knowing to believing? And what is an example going from being in control to being in charge?
Well, let's take that one first. Being in control usually means that you know what is being taught that day.
Okay, so being prepared.
Yeah, being prepared to teach something. So you have arrived at the lesson as a teacher with something to convey. You have prepared a lesson which is telling. You're going to tell them about something. That puts the students in a subordinate role, and they don't like being there. So the change is to allow the students to take a similar level as you, as the teacher, and instead of telling them so much, you can still tell them. You can still have maybe 10 minutes of telling. But in this section, you are asking, not just to find out what they know, but maybe to find out what they don't know. find out what they know beyond what you are going to tell them. A beautiful example of that is the teacher goes in prepared to cover 10 points in this 1 hour, starts engaging the students and finds out that they know all 10 already, and they know 10 more that the teacher didn't know that they knew. But by asking them, by getting them into a conversation where their knowledge is placed high, find out what they already know, and discover that there were no gaps. And then the teacher has to start thinking on their feet, how can I get in, use the lesson time now that they know what I'm going to teach them?
How simple. You just kind of go into your class and say, okay, guys, we're gonna go ahead and cover this material today. And before I do, I want to check to see if you guys know what I'm gonna do, because I don't want to double up on myself. So yeah,
I don't want to double up on you either. I don't want to stand here telling you stuff you already know. So I don't pick a subject. What do you already know about this? What does this word mean to you? Do these concepts mean to you? Where are your? Does your experience match up to the thing that I'm planning to talk about?
Boy, you're engaging. You're engaging.
You engage them, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And you very often find that the students know a lot that you didn't know that they knew. That's important. And you waken up their interest because it's a conversation. It's equal ground now. They've told you 3 things they know. You can tell them 3 things you know. It's an exchange.
Deal.
A deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And matter of fact, if it's coming from the students themselves, they're listening even more closely. And they're watching you. You're bringing a sterile environment to an in-charge dialogue.
There you go. That's another way of putting it.
Cool.
You're in charge of the structure. As the teacher, you get to choose who speaks and for how long. But they are in charge of the content.
How fun.
And this might be of an hour, this might be 10 minutes, it could be at the beginning, the middle, the end. I'm suggesting one can experiment. There are also questions you could ask about the structure of the lesson. And I'm suggesting there that you need to answer the student's biggest question first. So they come into the classroom and, it says on the board, some title. Why are we learning this? Please tell me why, because unless I know why, I don't care. And the why can be wrapped up in, for example, a piece of drama, a story, which can be told. You're still in that part of the lesson, you can still be telling. But you're engaging the students in their question of why, so that you can get them into conversation.
So that brings us to step number 4, using open questions. And you have written, tune up your teaching questions and to include coaching questions. Teach even more through dialogue.
Yeah, I thought step 3 was too big, so I split it into 2. The first step was in 3 was to allow yourself to ask questions. And it talks a lot about the benefits of doing that. In this step, number 4, it's open questions, specifically the what, the how, the when, the who, around how they are going to find out the things they need to find out. So you can involve the students in designing the lesson. For example, it might be, what goals do you have of the goals that are on the board? Imagine a lunchtime menu. Here we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things I, as teacher, have planned. I would say to the students, of all the things that are on the board, which seems most important to you? And which are you going to do? It doesn't mean you get to choose. I'm just engaging in dialogue. You think that one's important. What makes that one important? What do you think you're going to learn by doing that instead of the others? How much of this chapter, we got 43 pages, my goodness. How much of that chapter do you think you can read in 8 minutes? And how can you read more? What would help you in reading faster or better, or getting more knowledge out of that book? And hearing the students hearing each other's strategies for learning, because you always got too much to learn. There's never enough time. No teacher said, "Oh, I've got so much time in my lesson." But you will after this. Working in this way, the students are much more open to learning. In fact, they're already learning before you even tell them to.
They're pulling something in and claiming it for their own.
Yes.
Wow, that's empowering.
It's also useful at the end of a lesson. I observe teachers and give them feedback on their teaching skills.
Which must be a very peaceful experience for the teacher.
Well, we always come to an agreement on what I should look at. I mean, I'm there for the teacher. How impressive is this? You go into a classroom as a coach, and the teacher says to the class, "Here is my coach. I want to be the best teacher I can be for you because you are the future. This is my coach. He's going to give me feedback." Mm-hmm. It says to the students, I take my profession seriously. And I've employed a coach to observe me on a certain number of points and give me a coaching feedback.
And we all know what coaching feedback looks like, don't we?
Yes, we do. Lots of open questions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've seen teachers use, once they get into this coaching approach, having been coached usually, they use it with the students. And I saw one teacher give a kind of rounding off the lesson. She asked every single student, "What have you learned today? And what helped you to learn? What got in the way? What did you do that stopped you from learning today?" If they hear the results weren't so good. "And what will you do differently tomorrow?" And the students are talking about their own learning process and how they can learn more. Mm. And it's all done by asking. There's no, "Oh, I think you should do this. I think you should listen more." No. The teacher's asking, "How was your listening today? And what benefit did you get from that? Or what happened when you did that?" Reflection on their own performance, just as the teacher's going to do with their own coach. The teacher was giving the students the opportunity, by using open questions, of getting perspective on their learning.
And what brave teachers there are out there now, wanting to take on these coaching approaches. I mean, this is really telling of caring, and should I dare say respect?
Oh, respect comes in really strong. I've seen classes that have been universally disrespectful of every teacher. And then have a teacher stand up in front of them and saying, "You know what, this isn't working for anybody, and I want to make a change with our relationship, and I hold 51% of the responsibility. So this is what I want to do, and I want your help. Are you on board with me?" And they love it. They love giving their teacher feedback. The thing is, the teacher's they're in charge. They're holding what the conversation's going to be about. Mm-hmm. Which is important. And
they're directing and opening the relationship as more of a peer. I recognize you as a valid individual, as a student that's here to learn, but you are an individual that has the same respect that I have.
Yeah, that's where respect comes from. Teachers showing respect for their own development and the students' development, and the fact that the two are interlaced.
And you have this inherent knowledge inside of you that I recognize, and I'm going to call forth.
Yeah. As a student, you have an experience of the world which is unique, and we need this. We enjoy hearing how we are different.
Well, I guess that brings us to question number 5. It's asking for feedback, actually seeking it out, and you have written exercises in awareness and courage. Okay? Exercises in awareness and courage. This step will move you towards powerful, positive communication. So awareness and courage. Talk to this.
Right at the beginning, you're right to say teachers are brave, because you're asking students for feedback. Normally when I ask teachers, what does feedback mean to you? They talk about them giving feedback to the students, on the students' work. So we set up a model. What are you giving feedback about? To whom? When? How? And then I say, what if we did that backwards? What would you want feedback on? From whom and how? So the teacher is empowered in choosing the topic and the delivery method. Could be, for example, that the teacher has the courage to ask the question, what did you think of the lesson today? But does it in such a way that they don't start a riot, because there could be that kind of reaction. Filter it, make it anonymous, and give them maybe 4 categories like brilliant lesson, okay lesson, poor lesson, and whoa, exclamation mark and rude words. So the students can make a little mark on the paper saying, that lesson was okay actually. Or it was not okay. You don't know who's saying what, but you get a little measure. As a teacher, you get a measure of what's going on, at least what they're prepared to say at that time. Anonymity is important, and giving them clear categories is important. And then you can become more detailed as you become, as a teacher, more brave. The students get more used to giving feedback. They can use the same methods that teachers use to give students feedback. But the questions would be about the relevance of the subject material that you're studying, the usefulness of the resources, or whatever.
Yeah,
whether
I was just thinking, Martin, the tool that these students are getting is invaluable for their life of learning how to give creative or positive feedback. It's just not positive, but giving feedback in a constructive way. Not in a judgmental way. How many students are actually prepared to do this? I mean, something that I'm still learning at my age today. So this is what a powerful tool, and how powerful it is for the teacher too, in order to get a concept of the classes, of how I'm presenting it, and also if there's things that are irking the students, well, I'll try to change that.
That's a very good topic. You could actually have a heading, what irked you today?
Well,
how many times did you get irked today? I mean, if a teacher has a particular mannerism, like saying or jangling the keys in the pocket, and the students are just focusing on that rather than the content, it would be brilliant if the teacher knew about it. And there's feedback going on anyway, usually in the tone of voice, the language the students are using, their attentiveness or lack of it. That's feedback. But here we're getting it onto paper, we're getting it into some kind of structure. The teacher's still in charge of the feedback.
Okay. Well, this is, again, it's a two-way, it seems to be a two-way street, both for the students and the instructors. For the students of learning how to give positive or how to give constructive feedback, and for the instructor to actually learn, for the teacher to actually learn, what is it that's working, what is it that's not working, in a very direct way. That's brilliant. That's kind of a British way. Brilliant. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Brilliant. Well, I'm very happy with the word brilliant. And then.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm aiming to create brilliant teachers. I want that response from a student of any age to their teacher, to look at their teacher and think, that's just brilliant. Courageous, bold, open communication. That's a brilliant teacher. I'll do anything for him.
Well, that brings us to step number 6. It's about courage. Instilling learning from mistakes. Exercising, you've written this, exercising in generating mistakes to learn from. Okay, so you will become more caring, vulnerable, and assertive, turning the victim triangle upside down to a winner's triangle. Wow, now that sounds a little frightening, to tell you the truth. If I was a teacher, vulnerability. In front of everyone? Come on.
Every teacher feels extremely vulnerable walking into a classroom. They do anyway, because anything could happen. And it's behind closed doors, usually. I'm not saying it should be, but it often is. And there's more of them than there are of you.
Oh, they outnumber you.
They outnumber, and even teenagers. Some of them are bigger than I am. And that's true. I'm not very tall. Some of them are just huge, and they get into fights. And what you going to do?
Well, let me just reverse number 3 and let me get back in control and control them.
Can't do it.
I'll teach them.
You can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. So what are you asking for these instructors? And boy, this is a biggie.
Well, first of all, there's a couple of mentions there of a couple of models that are used in transactional analysis. A little bit of theory. I'm trying to keep most of the theory out of this book because there are lots of other books filled with it. But this one's particularly useful. And it's based on the fact that most teachers want to help their students. They want to help them to become better at whatever their subject is. And teachers really enjoy seeing it when students get it, when they can ride a bicycle or swim or do carpentry or mathematics or whatever it is. There's a joy in the teacher when the student grows in that way. So it's a one-sided relationship that can, in its worst case scenario, become one of a victim, a rescuer, and a persecutor.
Neither or sounds inviting.
No, but most of us as teachers want to help, and that puts us into a rescuer position, which puts our students into the victim position, or the or we become their persecutor. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to help. Would you please hand your homework in on time? Oh, you're always on at me. Oh, hang on a minute. What's going on here? And once you become aware of these triangles, sometimes they're very gentle and rather subtle and quite fun, but really there's something odd going on. And you notice it when it gets, parents start coming in and, why haven't you taught my son better mathematics? Hang on a minute. You could end up feeling a victim at the end of that conversation. Because you try to be a rescuer. So just becoming aware of this triangular relationship and looking for another triangular relationship. Well, not triangle, it's 3 cores to becoming free of that relationship. There are 3 skills you need to adopt, and one of them is being vulnerable. So you're not so sure you're right, but it could have been. It could have been the way that the other person's saying it is. It could be, might not be, and it might not be the way I think it was either. Being assertive talks about being sure of what's right for you. It doesn't mean you can demand it. So caring means that you care as much about the other person as you do about yourself. So it's equal. It's not too much of caring of that person. But, for example, I've heard teachers who sweat away long nights and all weekend to get the books marked. That's a victim state. Mm-hmm. There are other ways of getting around it.
Giving them all A's.
Well,
then they just love you. You guys are great. Look at this.
Yeah, look at that. We've all got the high grades. Not really. Well. No, it's about learning from mistakes, creating an environment where mistakes are possible. Because fear of making mistakes prevents learning.
Wow. And getting to the point where I, as an instructor in front of the classroom, are really okay to talk about, the permission of making mistakes. I mean, really, it's setting the perfection model on top of its head as well. I mean, you're allowing the human model to show up.
Yes. Because the worst thing is teachers tend to know a lot more than their students about their own subject, at least, which puts the students in a subordinate, a weaker position. So it's great if the teacher can deliberately make some mistakes. Just say the wrong numbers. Just tell them that Napoleon was sending a text. I mean, no, we couldn't possibly, could he? Adding in the humor, as in chapter 3, and making a mistake. Catch me out today. There will be 3 mistakes in the next 15 minutes. There's a banana.
How fun! My gosh, this is great. Did you come up with all this yourself?
Well, let's say I've produced a vast number of mistakes in my life, in my teaching lifetime. And a face saver, when someone says, I believe that's incorrect, and I'm looking at the text on the board, I'm thinking, he's right, that is incorrect. And I say, all right, what should it be? That is correct. And there were 2 mistakes earlier today. Did you catch them? No, there will be 3 more. It's a way of flipping things around. You've got to make it okay to be wrong, because it's the only way you can learn.
Wow, this is cutting. This is really cunning too. And so this is the end of number 6, and so many listeners and many parents too who are interested in this, how did they get a hold of your book?
Well, they can go to my website, which is martinrichards.se, and they will find the book is available for a download, and they can print it themselves, or they can read it online. I think most people read it online these days. But anyway, they can read it on their laptop or their iPhone or their iPad. Or they can go to Amazon and download it from there as a print copy.
Okay, so you have it available as like a Kindle, or?
That's right. There's a Kindle version and there's a print copy. So you make your choice. I personally prefer printed copies. It feels better in my hand. But I'm old-fashioned.
Yeah, those dead trees. Who needs them?
Yeah.
So here is the authentic piece to your book. Nowhere am I reading here for you to change. You're asking the person actually to step up for who they are, and use the skills, use the qualities that the teacher already has in possession. So you're asking for authenticity in this case, aren't you? Absolutely.
That comes in chapter 2.
Well, there we go. So the people, I will go ahead and post your link, Martin, next to the broadcast, and people can go ahead and just click on that and get to Martin's website and get a hold of his book. And thank you so much for your availability. Thank you so much for your time and being with us here on Authenticity Radio once again, Martin.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we look forward to the next time you join us. This is Slade Suter. Until next time, be authentic, be true, take a coaching approach to your education, and be free.
Than the deep blue seas, that's how deep it goes if it's real. When somebody needs you.
Conflict is a choice you know. Whoa,
Oops.
watch it!
Sorry.
In order to gain a new perspective and how to resolve conflict in your organization, business, or family, go to AuthenticityRadio.com. All right, enough.
Hiya, I'm Pixie Lott.
Authenticity Radio.
You are listening to Slade Suter.